In the first video, our class did a chord analysis from the beginning of Invention number 8 to measure 12, where we have modulated from the original key of F to the dominant in C, and you get your original sort of subject statement right here, and then we get a transitional sequence, and then here when we finally get to C, we start up again with a new statement of the original idea. This right? It's the same as the beginning, except now the left and right hands are flipped, and it's in the key in C rather than the key of F. What we're going to do today is we're going to charge through measure 12 until 26, where the original idea starting from measure 4 comes back, and it's literally a transcription of this but in a different key, which will give us to the home key by the time we're done. I talked about that in the previous video too. Sometimes inventions and imitative structures like this can be difficult to analyze for a student because we don't know the piece well enough, so we're not hearing the restatements or the middle entries here and here, right? And sometimes we aren't using information that we learned in the first part of what Bach's doing as a sort of a operatus, well, the way that he wants to develop and work with the other parts. The first thing that we should do here is just figure out our closely related keys, draw our box here, right? And if we started in the key of F, that's 1 flat, and then D minor is your relative minor. 2 flats would be B flat. So plus 1 flat and plus 1 sharp, which would be 0 sharps and flats. And then G minor. And then this will be C, and this will be A minor. And we're not going to hit every one of these keys in every piece. But these are logical places that common practice composers, period composers, want to play in. So we started here, and then we went to here, like this, right? And then afterwards, we're going to hit some other keys, and we'll show you how that works. So, but that's a good expectation to have, okay? So we're here in the key of C, and, right? And this is just like it was up at the top here, and we know this is all over the 1 chord, right? You can C, E, C, G, it's just a 1 chord right there. And then here we get this run down the scale, C, G, E. And this is repeating this canon at 1 measure. So this is still a 1 chord right there, and it's still a 1 chord right there, and that matches up with the first 3 measures right here in the key of F. Okay, and you can hear that. What happens here, since we're in the middle part, is that rather than running through and doing the rest of what Bach did at the beginning, he just says, "Wow, we're just going to do something different." And so as you're running down here and you're going like, it immediately just changes, right? Oops, I'm looking off to the right. And so, we have to just sort of presume that we're now moving off to a new key because there's not a lot of time in these pieces, and we want to develop by getting around to these areas. And so let's just have a look and see where we're going. We can start just by saying, well, what chord is this? Or we can look at the scale as well. And if you look, we've got an E flat added to the B flats, right? That were in the original key. So that's 2 flats, right? B flat and G minor. But then this F sharp here suggests that we're in G minor, because that's the leading tone that you'd have to put in there. And if we look at this chord here, this is going to be an F sharp and a A and a C, and this is a non-chord tone, and an E flat, which is F sharp diminished 7. And we know from our study of chord functions that fully diminished 7s, unless they're being used for chromatic purposes, secondary dominants and things like that, are always going to be 7 diminished in the minor key, right? And F sharp is the 7 of G minor. So that's what's happened here, is we just jumped in and said, I guess we're in G minor. Surprise, happened right away. And you get a 7. And we'll just go with the first note here for our figured bass. So that's the 7th. So 7 diminished 2, right, in the key of G minor, and we expect that to go to a 1 chord, which is G minor, and it does. We can see right here that we have G, B flat, right, D, G, and then we have our G minor scale. This has been added in, right, so that it's the G minor scale right there. This is my 1 chord. I'm just going to go back to the middle. Okay, and we know that this runs at least 2 measures because this is going to go down to here in some sort, and that's going to go up to there in some sort. So if you look here, we have a G and a G and a B flat and a G and a D, and this is my scale again right there. It's still 1. Okay, and we go over the page and we do it one more time. It's a 3G going down, change of clef, does the same thing, and this is my G minor. So just again, like our beginning was 3 measures because it's canon at one measure, and our first restatement in the dominant is 3 measures of that. Okay, then we have a statement of it in G minor to right there as well. Okay, and then as soon as we're done that, this happens again, right? It's an interruption of, just like we had an interruption of the line right here. We're going to see something similar. So it's a longer extended sequence or device that's happening here. But let's just check this out again. It seemed like this was the non-chord tone, right? The neighbor right there, but this is bass clef, so be careful, right? Sorry, I'm not on the page here. This is neighbor tone, bass clef, so we want to be careful right here. And this is a E, or sorry, a G, and an E, and a B flat, and a C sharp right there. And after you do some turning around, you find out that that's an E, sorry, C sharp, diminished 7 chord. And 7 chords, sorry, diminished 7 chords function as a 7 chord in minor. So if this is C sharp, we expect we're going to D minor. And that's exactly what we have here. D, A, F, D, A. And if you look, we went from F to C, jumped down to G, and now we're going to D minor right there. It's great. These are all places that we want to see. This can confirm to us our sort of like it's making sense, and it can help us with our chord progressions to see what's going on, because keys have chord progressions that they like to be in, right? So this is now key of D minor. Okay, and this will be my 7, and it looks like the third of the chord is in the bass, so we'll give it a 6-5, right? And this is my 1, thirds in the bass, so 1-6 in D minor, just like that. Okay, and then all of a sudden from here we get this new thing happening. This idea keeps going on a little bit, but we have a new, this is not going up and down my arpeggio, right, or sticking between 2 notes. Is doing a different kind of arpeggio. It's actually kind of a mirror and retrogrades of things. Different video, different time. You can analyze these things for retrogrades, inversions, those kind of counterpoint devices as well. But if we listen to this, right, and then we get to here. Okay, sequence. It's a sequence. And you can see also, if we're in the key of D minor, that B flat is native to D minor, right? It's the relative minor to F. But then occasionally B's and C sharps creep in because this is the melodic minor that's bringing us back up, right? So it's scalar confirmation that we're in D minor. I'm thinking circle of fifths here because that's his favorite thing to do. And you can see these things stepping down, which is an indication of circle of fifths. Now I'm gonna do the next part incorrectly because, and then I'll fix it, because I want to show you what a student would maybe do. And it's a good thing. I think the technique is correct, but we can go back and look at what Bach has done earlier in the piece, and it can give us a clue on how to interpret this. So the goal here is to think circle of fifths, right? And that means that D minor would go down to a G chord, which would go down to a C chord, which would go down to an F chord, which would go down to a B, or a B flat chord, depending on which version we're using of the scale. And that would go down to a E, right? And then that would go down to an A, and then that would go down to a D chord again. Or we could break off at any point here, but this is the progression we're looking for, right? And so when we look here at this chord, or this measure right here, a student, and we did this in class, I let students sort of struggle with this on their own too, and it happens almost always. They go, well, I think this whole thing's a chord. And it does look like that. You've got a C, an E, a G, and a G, and a B flat. And so they'll go like, wow, I think I found a chord. Is this C7? Looks like it, right? C, E, E, G, and then B flat, right? So it looks like we went from D, skipped G, and went down to the C right there, which is my subtonic 7, which is okay, right? And then if we look here and we figure this one out, then you go B, D, F, A, right? And you go, well, is that a B half diminished 7? Kind of looks that way, right? Which is going to there, stepping down rather than circles of fifthing. And if we go to here and we look at this one, it's A, C sharp, E, G, and it's like an A7, right? And in some ways you could just say, well, isn't it just a sequence? And like when you go like this, to there, to there, and we're just going down, and then this is my D chord. Well, it depends. It looks like it's kind of doing D here, but this is B flat D F, right? So is this a, you know, or G B flat D? This is a G minor 7 chord, right? And so instead of our circle of fifths, we seem to be going C down to B, down to A, down to G, and then this here looks like a F, A, C, E flat, and F7. Okay. Well, I mean, it looks like the chord, but it doesn't seem right from a chord progression point of view. And one of the things that drives Bach's music so much is that he has strong chord progressions, which is why I'm thinking circle of fifths. Let's go back to the beginning and I'll show you something that he's done earlier, which will help us with this or explain why. Once you understand these tricks, then you look at it, it'll become, oh, it makes sense. So here, as we're changing to the key of C, okay, we're in the key of F right here. And this is a G7 chord, which is the 5, 7 of 5, right? And it's got an inversion, so you could go like, 5, 4, 3 of 5, doesn't matter. And then this should be my 5 chord over here, right? And it is. There's my C, E, G, B flat. There's my C7 right there, right? And that would be my 5 chord, okay? And 5 wants to go to 1, but at the same time, we're gonna change key here as well. See, there's B natural and stuff going on here. So if we looked at this thing as a whole, it gets confusing, but you go, well, is this a G7 chord? I've got my G and my B natural and my D, right? I know that it's an A, which is inconvenient, but otherwise there's my F right there, right? So what Bach is doing here is he's running the payoff harmonically for this chord right there. And then immediately he changes. So if you look here, this is C7 and it should go to a 1 chord, which is F. And there it is, F, A, right there. You can even call that like an appoggiatura if you want and continue on. But I kind of feel like it picks up right after the 8th note. And then it says I'm going to be a G7 chord and I'm in the key of C. So if we listen to this right here, let me find it all over here on the keyboard, right? We're like, then we have our B flat, right? That's our 5-1 right there. But then as soon as we're done, we're gone, right? The other thing that he's done here earlier is he really likes to take the top half of the chord, stick it down there and stick a third below. And when he does that there, it changes from an F chord to the D minor chord here. And it's basically chopping off the top half, sticking it there, and then sticking the bottom. He's taking advantage of the fact that these chords go down by thirds and you have common tones, 2 common tones between them. Okay, let's remember both of these things now as we come back over here. We want to have a circle of fifths that makes sense to us and makes sense in our ears, and we also want to see proof of that in chords. So remember that he's going to go for 1, and then 1 should go down to G, right, for circle of fifths, which is my 4 chord right there. And then this is my subtonic 7 right there. Okay, so let's look for confirmation of that. So we have a D minor chord all the way along here. And then what happens when we get to the beginning here? What if we chop this off and considered it separately? G, B flat, G, B flat. This is my G minor chord right there, which is my 4, right? 4, 6, I guess, if we count that as our bass note. So we're up at on the D minor chord, and we're doing, like this, with this sort of like, and we need to go to a G minor chord, and it happens on the beat right there, right? It goes, right? Right? And that's all we get. So the presumption is that these would be evenly spaced, 1 per measure or something like that. It's not the case. Just like at the beginning here, where he pays off his harmonic cadence right there from C7 to F right here, he's going to pay off his 5-1 going from D minor to G. But as soon as that's done, then the rest of this right here is my C7 chord, which is my 5, 6, 5 right there. And then this is a pattern that will happen again, right? So we check out right there. The expectation is C will go to an F chord, right? That'll be the relative major 3, and there's F, A, which is all you need, right? This is my F chord right here, which is going to be a 6, because that's my inversion right there. And then it goes to the B half diminished 7, which is, right? It's a 6 half diminished 7. That's the 3rd right there, so we'll call it a 6-5. And it's a little weird because normally, we think of 6 chords as a major 6 or a major 7 chords in the minor key, but it's inflicted up to the less common half diminished version because we're using our melodic minor to get us up there, right? So that's good. And then what about this one right here? Well, B should go down to E, right? Which will be my 2 chord. And there's my E and G and my E and my G. This is my E diminished chord, although the 5th isn't present right now. And that'd be like 2 diminished 6 right there. And then A should go right there, right? Which is my, I guess this is more like a 7, subtonic 7. I shouldn't be thinking in the relative major yet, right? So this is my 5 chord right there. And then A, which is there, should go to D. And D would be, E goes to A, which should go to D, yes? And that's right there. This will come over here like that. D, 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 F. This is D minor, which is my 1 chord. So we've gone all the way around the circle of fifths, and he's going to keep going because he's going to get us over there. So then D will go back to G, which is right there. That's my G minor right there. G, B flat, D, right? It's got the 7th on it right there. So this is a G minor 7 roots in the bass. This is my 4 minor 7 right there like that. And then G should go to C. Let's take a look at right there. C, C, E, G, or C, C, and then my C and my E. This is a C. You can count that as a 7th if you want, because it's the 5 chord. We just go 5 like that. Or subtonic 7, sorry. I'm so keyed into the key of F originally. Subtonic 7. And then that should go down to an F, which is right there. And that is my F7, which has been turned not just into an F chord, but into an F7. And now we've changed key, because this is going to be the 5 in B flat. And that's where we're going to head right there. This is a B flat chord. And if you look, we now into there for B flat. The only place this piece will not go is A minor. And it's actually very uncommon to go to this many places, right? The reason he can do this is because, and I explained this a little more in the other video, is that when he gets to here, this is the same thing as measure 4 right there. And this runs exactly to here and takes us up a fifth, right? Because it's going from F to C. And so he starts, instead of coming back to the key of F and then running through and doing things, he comes back to B flat, which is a fifth below, transposes the whole thing. It's identical, like absolutely identical, but that changes us from B flat up a fifth to F. And so by the time we're here, we're back in the key of F and we get our cadence, but it's the same the whole way. Okay. All right. This here, where he goes 5/7, and then even though he's changing key, he pays off with a 1 chord right there, is a key and a clue to understanding this last sequence here, which is that once he starts doing his circle of fifths, he's gonna get to the chord he needs to pay that off and then switch. Get to the chord he needs and then switch. And it's gloved in like this because just like when he was going and taking the da 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 and sticking it down there and then adding something below it, this top part of my G chord fits nicely into the C7 that's following it, so they feel blended, right, through them, which is another thing that he said he was going to do when he did this first sequence up there like that, going down, playing hard and soul. All right, hopefully that's useful. I don't expect first-year students to get this on their own, but if you can follow along and understand the concept, and you can pull on all the different things that you've learned, your chord progression rules, your spelling chords and identifying them, your figured bass, looking for circle of fifth sequences, using things like, oh, this is a diminished 7 chord, so it's going to be a 7 going to a 1, those kind of rules and things. We learn them all separately, we're pulling them all in and using them, and then what happens is you build up a library of Bach did it this way here, or did it this another way here, or this composer did this here and stuff. And so when you get something that's a little more confusing like this, right, or at least not clear, then you say, well, wait a second, if it's the circle of fifths, then this should go to a G chord next, and you can find that there. You can find a rationale for it. We're building up a vocabulary, sort of like a analysis IQ. It doesn't apply to every piece, but eventually you have enough experience with these things that you see when one of these things gets employed, right? It's like, think of a great tradesman, whether it's a, like a competent plumber or mechanic, or somebody comes in and they've seen so many things on plumbing systems or car engines and things like that even though they don't know exactly what it's going to be, they soon see a system there and they go, oh, it's probably this, and they investigate and confirm, right? So it's good experience. We shouldn't wait till second year for you to get a chance to dig in on these things. Don't be frustrated if you go like, yeah, I get it, but I can't do it. That's where you're supposed to be. If you can get it when we show it to you, then you'll get it the next time and the next time. And on the third or fourth time, you'll start going like, I think I got this. And, nice thing about music is there's always another piece that will take you down a notch, even when you're a teacher, and you'll have to have somebody else explain it to you. Or you can just go like, I don't know, I don't get it. Anyhow, there you go for today.